To get started, here's a word bubble about who I am. My name is Ibiyemi Balogun, and I am a career consultant, and I currently work at Ryerson University, Ted Rogers School of Management, specifically with business technology students. So Moni, for instance, is one of my students. So it's nice to meet all of you. Welcome to today's session. We're going to be talking about career mapping and looking through, how to get from point A to point B when you're looking at your career. I always start with this slide, especially the word bubble, because I think it's important to define yourself, right? So think of, different words that pop up that define who you are as an individual. And these can be personal words, these can be professional words, these can be words that you kind of live by. Words that you can live by to get a better sense of, who it is that you are. I think a lot of job searching and a lot of career mapping is really starting with yourself, right? I always like to think about it like economics. And I'm an economics major from a couple of years ago, but it's demand and supply, right? I think, obviously the job market represents the demand and the supply is the individual. So you are the talent, you are the supply of talent. And I think a lot of the times we forget to consider that portion when we're looking for opportunities. So it's about starting with yourself, understanding what you have to supply, and then going towards the demand and seeing where there's matches, okay? So after you've picked a few words here to define who you are, the next thing is to really get a better sense of where you're currently at. And just as a quick note, I'm very much a speaker that likes to engage with the audience. So please use the chat. I can see it clearly on my screen. I figured out the technology beforehand. So if you have any quick questions as this presentation is going on, please feel free to use the chat. I think it's a little bit weird because I feel like I'm talking to myself, but I want to talk to you guys. But I put this slide up here because I understand that this has been a very tough time for a lot of people. So I wanted people to take some notes and start to think about where they're currently at and the current mindset that they have. I attended a session a couple of weeks ago where a professional was talking about how job search is a lot about mindset, and mindset is important. So within this session right now, within COVID-19, within the pandemic, are you seeing yourself as a victim of the pandemic, or are you seeing yourself as a person that can be victorious, someone that can look at it as an opportunity, right? You want to ask yourself certain questions, right? How are you feeling? How are you feeling mentally, financially? How has this affected your job search and your career as a whole? And I want you to get very honest with who you are and the things that matter to you, right? So these are some questions. Think through it. Spend some time working through and understanding, how to walk through this process here. Okay. When you're thinking about career mapping, you want to think about your story, right? I think a lot of people forget that they're in sales when they're looking for a job because you're selling yourself, you're selling your skills, you're selling your expertise. And it's important to fully understand what that supply is. So this workshop is really talking about how to get from point A, which is, that black dot, where are you now, thinking about what you currently have to offer, your current education, your experiences, the skill sets. And lastly, I put there the outlook. So I alluded to this a little bit before, but the outlook is really, 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 really important. It's a great opportunity there to get a better sense of how am I approaching the job market? How am I approaching what's going on out there, right? I forget her name, but she started the session off today talking about how there's been 419,000 jobs added back into the economy, right? So that's positive. I think this is a weird recession because it's been ebbs and flows. Normal recessions just goes all the way down, and then it takes a couple of years to come back up. But because there was shortage of production, and then government subsidy kind of pumped into the market, we see a fluctuation again. So it's a little bit of a different kind of recession, but there's still a ton of opportunity. Okay. Then it's identifying where you want to go, right? So thinking about what are those passions, what are those abilities, what are those intersections? We're going to get into that a little bit more in the next couple of slides. But where I really want to speak to you today about is how to get there. What is the map? What are the things that you should be doing to get from point A to point B? Sorry. There we go. Okay. So the first step is to take inventory, right? Like I said before, point A, where are you at? What is my current education level? What is my current experience? What skills do I have, right? I think in this time, while you're job searching, I think it's important to also continue to build up your skill set. Sorry about that. There's construction in my neighborhood. You want to continue to build up your skill sets so that you're not missing anything when you re-enter the job market, right? So alongside going to conferences like this, having conversations, doing that job searching, you should also be either taking a course online, doing a masterclass, learning about who you are, and really just focusing in on what you have to offer to the market, because you have tons to offer, right? That's step one, taking inventory. Step two, which is a little bit difficult for some people, is defining an end goal. And I put end there in quotations because it's really, really and truly about a specific timeline, right? So when I put end there, I don't necessarily mean the end of your life, obviously. I mean, what are your goals for the next year? What are your goals for the next 5 years, the next 10 years? I know a lot of people are in current industries and they've been in those industries for many years. There was a woman here at the session last time we did this, and she had lost her job after 24 years in the same role. At that point, it's best to ask yourself, do I want to continue or do I want to pivot completely? So when you're identifying the end goal, you have to look at your passions and you have to look at your abilities, right? And those two things have to come together. When you think about your passions, you think about the things that you're good at, things that you're interested in. If you have all passion all day, but you don't actually know how to do it, no one's going to hire you, right? And then on the flip side, if you have abilities for days, right? You have all these skill sets in all of these different areas, but you're not passionate about it, you're not excited, you don't get excited every single day, you're going to be miserable in that role, right? And you're not going to do it for very long. So the idea is to look at, what am I good at? So where's my starting point? What skills do I have? What I'm passionate about? And seeing if there's intersections. And I think this is the piece that people forget. What are the keywords, right? The job search market works on keywords, right? I spent the first 5 years of my career in recruitment, hiring for newcomers, for students, all of that. And keywords is probably how we do our most of our searching, right? You apply for a job, there's hundreds and hundreds of candidates. And honestly, it is truly hundreds and hundreds. I don't think people really understand what that looks like on the other end, but it's quite daunting for the recruiter as well. And the way we parse through things is keywords. If you don't have the right keywords on your resume, you can send them out all day, but we won't be able to see them and you'll be missing a ton of opportunities there. So when you're identifying an end goal, come up with those keywords, like I said at the beginning, that define you, those keywords that are helpful for moving through in this process. Okay? The third step is really where I want to park today and spend a lot of time. This is the mapping out, right? When we think career mapping, I think we always forget that it's an actual map, right? And maps have multiple routes to the same location. And I think it's important to recognize that. Starting out my career, I always knew exactly what it is that I wanted to do. And I always looked at it from one path. I always said, from here to here, this is what it's going to take. But my career journey, and you talk to anyone that has had any kind of career, will tell you that it's actually ebbs and flows. And half the time you're going in different directions. And you have to kind of, pivot as you go. And I think a lot of people get stuck with the pivot. And it's so important to just lean into that pivot and still identify what it is that you want to do. To be able to do that, you need to do your research. I cannot tell you enough how important it is to do your research. Research is probably the most important piece when you're looking to enter into an industry or looking to get further into an industry. And, we have such amazing tools at our fingertips that we just don't necessarily know how to use. LinkedIn is obviously one of them. I think a lot of people use LinkedIn from a networking perspective, which is great. But from a research perspective, LinkedIn is unprecedented. It's one of the best out there when you're looking at research within an industry, right? So you'd start by doing industry research. And when you're doing industry research, the first thing you want to think of is, where are my interests? Where do they lie, right? When you're picking an industry, there's no science to picking an industry other than, I've seen this industry about, I'm interested in it, let me just do some research, right? It's all about just picking one or two, right? And for those of you that may or may not know, an industry is essentially just a group of companies that does the same thing. So Bell, TELUS, Rogers, they're all part of the telecommunications industry here in Canada, right? Sobeys, Loblaw, they're all part of the grocery industry here in Canada, right? All, again, are under the industry bucket. The next step is then to identify the companies. I think a lot of the times, especially because I've seen a lot of people coming from different countries moving to Canada. Canada is obviously has open borders. I came here as a student as well. There's a ton of movement between countries, and you may not understand or you may not know the specific companies that make sense for an industry that maybe you used to be. So the first thing to do is just do a Google search. Top companies in Canada in this industry, right? It'll be so helpful for you to just get a list of those companies and get a better understanding of what that looks like from that perspective, right? And it's literally just as simple as making a list of them, right? Large, medium-sized, small, what have you, right? It's best to start with the large just because they will have more information, but the idea is you're doing that research there. The next step is then to research role. I think a lot of people always assume that they know the job titles or they know what the job titles mean. But a lot of the times, hi Mohammed, nice to meet you. A lot of the times, they don't actually know what those roles or those job titles look like. So it's important, like I said, to do that research, go into the company website, go into their LinkedIn page, and just peruse and look at what do they call things, right? You know, different companies, even within Ryerson, right? Within Ryerson, I work, like I said, for the Ted Rogers School of Management. So I work for the business school. My role is a career consultant position. That's what we're called, right? My colleagues across campus who work with all the other students that are not in business, they also have a role, but they're called campus engagement specialists. The same exact role, two different job titles. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I know the exact role that I'm looking for, let me just look for that on LinkedIn, you're gonna be remiss because different companies call different things different names. So it's important to really get a skills inventory, or sorry, a name inventory, job title inventory of the favorite companies that you wanna work for, right? Then you wanna go into role research, right? So we already talked about that, sorry. We wanna go into individual research. And I think this is the piece that people always forget to do, right? It's the idea that you can actually find people on the internet that are currently doing what you want to do. I think it's so valuable, right? It's so valuable. Mohammed, we're just talking about career mapping, and we're talking about the 3 steps, which is, you know, starting with your skills inventory, going into identifying a journey of where you want to go, and then obviously mapping it out. But going back to individual research, it's really important to really find those individuals, right? When I wanted to go into HR, at this point, I'm not even in HR anymore. Like I said, pivoting is really important. I wanted to go into HR and I wanted to become an HR consultant, right? And I gave myself 5 to 10 years to do this. And I literally went onto LinkedIn and I found 10 people in the industry that were HR consultants. And then I just started looking at their different LinkedIn profiles. And one thing that I found is that they all started in temp recruiting. And I was like, that's interesting. Why would they all start in temp recruiting? I literally picked 10 random people, HR consultants with the job title. They all started with temp recruiting. And I realized that recruiting is one of those areas when you want to go into HR that you learn a lot about what's happening in HR, because you're dealing with contracts, you're dealing with hiring, you're dealing with performance management, you're dealing with compensation, you're dealing with a lot of things when you're in the recruitment space. Then I saw that all of those temp people ended up going into corporate recruiting, right? So recruiting for one particular company, right? And then I was like, okay, so maybe they learned from all the different companies that they went to, and then they put that into their experience within corporate recruiting. And then they usually kind of dabbled in 1 or 2 other HR roles, so either an HR business partner role or an HR analyst role, and then they went into business for their own, doing HR consulting. So I said to myself, hey, here's a path. And I think we never do that. We always just think, I need to figure it out by myself. And it's like, people have gone before you. People have had careers for many years. Even if your career doesn't exist yet, there's people that are in the crux of it. So instead of reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch, look at what other people have done and try to start mapping out, okay, so to get to point B, this person took this route, this person took this route. That means these are options. These are routes that you can take, right? And once you've identified, you do that research. Research will take you a bit of time, and it's not something that you can kind of just do in one day. You set up your LinkedIn in a way where instead of doing active research, you then start doing passive research. So what do I mean by that? Essentially, you find tags on LinkedIn with those keywords we talked about before that you can then follow. When you find tags and you follow people that are in that industry, you then learn more about the industry. So you make the algorithm work for you instead of the other way around, right? The algorithm then starts giving you the content that you're looking for. And that way, instead of always going out to find information, information's coming straight to you, right? Of the things that you actually care for. When you're scrolling through your newsfeed, it shouldn't be just random information. It should be the things that you care about, right? And that's that research phase. After you go through research, and this is something that we can talk about for another hour, you have to come up with a strategy, right? Which are your tools, so your application tools, thinking about your resume, thinking about your cover letter. Some of you are gonna have to think about a portfolio. A lot of the times we wait around for people to give us opportunities, whereas we can start working on it, right? I spoke to another woman that I actually met through Toronto Jobs. Funny, she reached out to me on LinkedIn saying that she was interested in career coaching. And I was like, okay, great. And she wanted to look for organizations where she could work in career coaching, but she had never done it before. And I said, what about like just putting up a session, just putting up a link, like a masterclass, putting it on Eventbrite, having it on Zoom and meeting with a few people. And she was like, oh, that's really interesting. And in that way, you can start coaching one or two people, even from that session, right? Obviously, you open it up and you say it's free and see what you can tweak. You can use those people as opportunities to tweak, your sessions so that by the time you get into actually working within the career coaching role, you have a better understanding of what that looks like. That's that online portfolio I was talking about, putting together, starting with working on some things that you can. Again, this is not going to apply for every single job, but it's going to apply for a lot of the jobs, right? If 2020 has taught us anything, is that a lot of jobs can be transitioned online, meaning you can do it from home, right? So you should start building that portfolio. Start thinking about interview prep, right? If I was to do an interview today, am I ready to do one? Do I know myself enough? Do I know companies? Do I know how to do research? Do I know the kinds of questions that are asked in interviews? These are the things that you want to start thinking through. And then when you're looking at, like I said, that job search strategy, again, you're looking at those methods. Where do I put in applications? Am I putting applications in on LinkedIn? Am I going out to recruitment agencies? I think recruitment agencies are so underrated and a lot of people always forget about them, but recruitment agencies are phenomenal. Agencies are phenomenal because they help you with the recruitment process, right? And that way you're going directly to some of the sources, whereas, some positions are not posted widely. Some positions are posted with specific agencies. And to get into that organization, you may have to go to that agency. But if you're just focused in one avenue, you might miss that completely, right? So LinkedIn, Glassdoor, the company page, recruitment agencies, these are places that you can start thinking about creating a strategy, right? And then the last piece is obviously networking. Networking from a research perspective, networking from a connections perspective. You want to learn about, what the industry that you're going into. Like I said, I spoke to that woman that emailed me right after the Toronto Jobs Fair, and we had a conversation and we said, hey, you want to get into this space? This is what it looks like. And she got a completely different perspective than she had assumed, right? In that situation there, did I give her a direct job? No, but I gave her an avenue to say, let me start working on my craft in this way and in this way. Right? So networking, you should think about it differently as well. Master classes are phenomenal. I'm currently doing a master class with a bunch of women that I just met on the internet. Honestly, it's been great. We've had different sessions. We're talking about wellness. We're talking about career planning. We're talking about many different things. And we have had a consistent group of 30 or 40 women joining us on Monday nights. But these are opportunities to network, right? And like I said, the last one is meetups. Meetups used to be obviously in person, but right now during COVID-19, not so much, but there's still opportunities to meet people and meet up even in this session, right? This networking platform is phenomenal. I heard, a person before. Yes, I can definitely give you the information from the masterclass, but I looked in the chat before and I saw an individual saying, oh, are we only networking with other job seekers? I want to talk to recruiters. You should absolutely network with other job seekers. You have no idea what other people have to offer. Just because they're in the seeking side does not mean that they have nothing to offer, right? So you should always be looking for those opportunities there. That's pretty much it. We are at 1:50. I can be on here to another 10 minutes or so, but this is how to find me. You can connect with me on my LinkedIn, Ibiyemi Balogun, and that masterclass that we talked about before. It is specifically focused for women because women are really my passion. So finding your impact, that's our Instagram page, and we've been doing these sessions, like I said before. This next Monday night is going to be our last night, but it's been a great 4 weeks, and we have all those recordings there available as well. But I would love for women to join us and have more conversations about what that looks like. Mohammed, I see you have a question here. Get the recording for this session, so you would have to reach out to Toronto Jobs because they will have information about what that looks like. And with Jess and Sumanjit, you can definitely find our masterclass on finding your impact there. Are there any other last questions that I can answer? Because we are pretty much out of time. But I can be here answering questions. I'm patient, so I can wait to have people kind of type questions in the chat. I think you guys were a little bit quiet, but it's okay. You're welcome. You're welcome so much. That's amazing. I'm going to wait for another minute to see if there's any other questions. Perfect. Niha, we're excited to see you. It'll be exciting to join us on Monday nights. Anybody else have any last questions? So if you go into our Instagram page, right at the top, we have a link in the bio that says register for the masterclass. Sumanjit, I'm applying for jobs through LinkedIn companies and job consultants, but not getting responses at all. So maybe it might be the tools that you're using, right? So this is something that we can definitely take a look at. This is something that we can have a conversation about. So thinking about, opportunities to look at your resume a little bit differently, we could definitely work on that. Wow, so the questions are coming in now. And then we have Mohammed, what are the options for men? There's obviously tons of options. Obviously, I'm not the only one out here doing masterclasses. If you go onto LinkedIn and search up, career planning or career workshops or masterclass planning or things like that, you should be able to see tons of sessions available. I just obviously have women are near and dear to my heart, which is why I'm specifically opening in that session. But that's a great question. I would encourage you to start one. I'm kidding. Or just look for one online as well. Nice to see you, Chanel. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Sumanjit, you want to know how to apply top 5 banks at any other bank? I prepared my resume as per Canada. Have you had that resume reviewed, though, by someone that works on the other side? So reaching out to recruiters, having those kinds of conversations, that might be an opportunity there, right? I would say, Sumanjit, if you wanted to chat, please just message me offline on LinkedIn, and we can have a conversation around what that looks like. I'm gonna have 1 more minute here. No worries. I hope to chat with you soon. You're welcome. Any last questions? Okay. Thank you all so much. Thank you. I really appreciate your time and your efforts. You guys were very responsive, and I love obviously doing this. So you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn to have more conversations. Have a good day. Bye-bye.